Straight on it, real easy to come out. Try not to torque on it. It's got these two clips in there. You can replace them, but it's just more money. So the next thing is we need access to the screws that hold the trim panel on. What I use is one of the trim tools that came with the kit that you purchased. And so start from the top. You get this one from the top. You see it has a hinge, so to keep from breaking it, I like to make sure to pry from the top. The next one's kind of hidden a little bit. If you pull out this handle, there's a black plastic thing in there, and if you go right beside the lock and just kind of pull, this is what it looks like. Black piece. Be careful, don't want you to break any of these tabs that hold it in. It would be annoying. And finally, the last one is down here at the bottom. It's kind of a rectangular one, and that exposes the 3 screws. So then take a number 2 Phillips, and either with a drill driver or just regular screwdriver, go ahead and take those out. Sometimes it's difficult to get these screws out of the deep pockets, so I like to use just a magnet. If you pull straight out, you can hear a bunch of clicks, and you want to go all the way up. There's usually one over here, and there's one right behind here that's a little sneaky. But you do that, and what you will find is that it's kind of loose, and it's just hanging from the top. So it's kind of cupped over the top of the metal of the door. So you might notice I have something here to set the door on, because I don't want to remove all of the components out of the back of the door, right? So there's the door handle mechanism, there's all kinds of electric switches, and I really don't need access to that right now. So I'm going to take a wire hanger, and what I'm going to do is just kind of hook it in a place that looks pretty sturdy down here, and hook it to the metal here, so that now we have something holding the door, and I can kind of move on. Mirror. And so the mirror is attached by 3 nuts that we exposed earlier. Now before I take those out, I'm going to get the mirror prepared to remove. And so the first thing is I'm going to remove this piece of tape here. And you can cut it or you can remove it. It's kind of up to you as to what you do. And so now that's free, and that'll come out. And now you might take a small screwdriver, or you could probably do it with your fingers. Press the clip down on the electronic connection here and go ahead and get that free. Now the last thing, and sometimes people forget this, is the mirror is hooked to a piece of trim, like a rubber trim that presses up against your truck, and it's got just a little plug to hold it in there. And so to keep from damaging that, use one of the forked plastic trim tools, kind of get behind that, and best you can pull it out, and hopefully you won't rip that rubber piece. So you kind of get that out, set that aside. Using a 10mm socket, we're going to take off these 3 nuts. There's 3. Now there's a little plastic tab right here above where the wires go in. It kind of holds this in so that they don't have to hold it and put the nuts in. If you kind of push that down, it'll come right out. Just take this color cap off, and you're going to start from the outside of the mirror and take this piece off. All right, that'll give us access down here. And so I'm going to go ahead and take these 2 screws out. You'll see this piece kind of moves now, and so that's this piece here. And be very careful not to break this. I'm not sure how much it would cost, but it's probably not cheap. Okay, we've got the bulb connection, so twist counterclockwise and pull up. And originally I was hoping and started out by kind of marking the inside of this to see if I could maybe come over here. But as you can see, there's not a lot of room here, so I'm not going to touch that area. And then if you look here, and you kind of put this up where it goes, there's not a lot of room here because it is taken up by the bulb. Put the camera here. As you can see, we've got some room there, and you know, if worst comes to worst, maybe if I break this little panel here, I can order just a new one of those and not have to order this piece here. There's one more piece, and so if you kind of pry this up and pull on this piece here, what you will see, you have another piece, what you will see is, you've got access to the wires now. Okay, so I went out and had a look at the 4Runner to see if there's anything else that I could see. And one of the things that became apparent to me is that if I'm going to install the camera on this piece, this face is not parallel to the ground. If I take this grommet and I use it appropriately, I might be able to make it where it's more parallel than it otherwise would be. So I'm going to take a Sharpie and put me a dot there. Just drill a pilot hole. So I've got a small drill here. So I'm going to change my bit, provided hole saw. Okay, we've got a hole. Let's see what that looks like. Oh man, that looks great. Even with that tilted grommet put in there, it doesn't quite get parallel to the ground. And so I was wondering if that mattered. I made a kind of a custom rubber spacer that I intended on installing, but what I found out is when you look at it on the screen, it actually doesn't amount to much. There's still going to be these black spaces here. It's just the nature of these 3D cameras. I think we could have minimized them some if we would have moved the camera out further, but we just didn't simply have the room. So I'm going to go ahead and install the other one in the exact same spot. And I need to make sure that the male and female fittings are aligned appropriately on this cable for the camera. Take this piece here off. You just kind of pull a little bit and kind of loosen the tape from here. You take the female end of the cable, the blue one for the right side, and kind of push it through there. Okay, now modify this plastic just a little bit. And so if you see here, I'm going to snap this off. Okay, so now there's a nice big channel. I'm going to snap this corner off. Okay. So now we've got room for this to lay down flush, and we'll be able to put the trim back on. And so what we'll do is we'll go ahead and connect these together, arrow to arrow. Okay, and if you notice, we can just almost lay down in that channel. So I noticed there's a little piece here that if it weren't there, it would fit that much better. And so again, I'm going to just snap that off. Alright, so you see how it lays down real nice in that channel there, and so that's what we want. So next thing I'm going to do is make sure that this cable can lay beside it and lay down nice and flat, because we need both of them to be protected and flat. And so route this around the screw, okay, and pull. It goes around this screw and into this area here. Just like that. And now we put this back on, being careful to keep all the wires contained where they're supposed to be. Okay, now we're going to see if we can fit this last piece on there. You can see it just pushes straight down as long as there's nothing in the way. And you can see it just pushes straight down as long as there's nothing in the way. And it looks ready to go back on to me. Now we're going to fish this wire we'll take this piece of trim up. You just lift up and that pops up if you lift straight up. For the black piece you pull directly down. Okay, and now there's going to be, you see here, an LED on the back. See, it's just got these little tabs on the side. Nice screwed in section. And then pull this one kind of out and towards the seat, and you'll expose the wires. And so now we can get in here, and in here you can get to this here. So if you pull this out, like I've already kind of done anyway, you can see that we have wires, and this is where the wires go into the door. They run into this plastic piece that keeps it protected. Run the cable through this hole here. The tab right there that'll keep it in. But I'm going to go ahead and put one nut on it just to make sure it doesn't fall out. I poked a hole in the bottom of this rubber hose looking thing, and the reason I picked the bottom is because if water were to get in it, I would hope that if you poke it in the bottom, it would ultimately migrate out. So we're going to go ahead and stuff this in there and see if we can get it to come out the top. We're going to go ahead and pull that all the way through. Last thing we need to do is stick it through the metal itself, and then here's a hole on the other side that the other wires are coming through. You should be able to feel it with your left hand. I'm not going to put this panel back up just yet. I'm going to wait until I route the cable through the wall here and connect it to the radio. This morning I did test my mirror to make sure that the light underneath it worked, and that the defrost worked, and that the camera worked even. So I went ahead and hooked that up. So for this piece you have kind of a tab here that goes in, and one of those trim clips. The tab goes here, the trim clip goes here. And then finally you have this piece here, and this piece here is it just screws on down here at the bottom. I'm gonna go ahead and put the sill plate back on. Just line up the clips, press it all the way down, and tighten these up. Make sure you don't over tighten them. The next thing we're going to do is a little bit of cable management. If you do use zip ties, what you should do is use a pair of flush cutters. I don't know if you guys can see those, but they're not like diagonal cutters, and they allow you to get right up next to this where it doesn't create a nice sharp edge for the next person to get cut on. So I'm going to go ahead and take the red tape that we removed before. One of the reasons you want to make things as neat as possible is because you're about to put this thing back together, and there's a lot of clips that need to line up, and if the clips don't line up, you're going to have a hard time getting it back together. Okay, so for me, 3 zip ties is plenty. got this. One of the things you shouldn't forget, remember that little black plug and that rubber piece. We're going to go ahead and put that back in. It's just a press fit item. There you go. That's in. Now it's time to put this back on. Now, I'll tell you, I've always had trouble putting this on in one piece. You have to kind of cup it on here and also watch out for these things with the clips. So what I do is it snaps off and I'll put it on first. Okay, so now get that nice and seated, and now all of your movement is going to be pushing either these clips and all the other clips this way rather than trying to kind of hook things in. And so as you lift this up, try and reseal the plastic that was here. You know, make it look nice. Let me get rid of my support wire. But another thing to check when you're putting this on is make sure that the door handle cables have not moved. If they've moved, you're going to need to put those back on, otherwise your door might not open the way you hope for it to. So then once that's done, you kind of get things lined up, press everything back in, push all the way around, reinstall the screws. The silver one goes here in the door handle. Again, don't overdo these either, because if you do overdo them, they're holding plastic components in, and you could crack those inadvertently, and that's the last thing you want to do is reduce the ability of your door panel to stay on. Put this piece on, 2 clips. This trim piece here goes this way. Close that. Close that. I have to put on the color cap. Start from this end. So you're looking at the firewall, and there's a penetration there that has a lot of wires coming from your engine, and then also a cable for your hood release. And so the cable for the hood release has a little guard beside it, but if you pull that back just a little bit, you see that you've got plenty of room to run a wire. And make sure that you're putting the male end of the camera cable through there. Right there is where we're going to come through. Okay, so I've got our coat hanger taped to the male side of the front cable. And so what you're going to do is run it alongside, and you're really going to have to push on your end. So I wanted to remind folks about the wire loom that was included with your kit. Now, you don't have to install this. I think it's a good idea. The reason is because it gives a little bit of space from the wire to the heat of the engine. Anything we can do to protect our wires is a good idea. Here it is with the loom installed. What I would do next is go ahead and, in a few places on the loom, go ahead and put some electrical tape. What that's going to do is help keep it closed. Okay, here's our wire. So we'll set that aside here for now. Now we have this piece here. We want to get access so that we can route the wire appropriately. Press all of these in. Plastic trim tool. Get them out. Take this off. You can do this all sorts of ways. You can come across the front piece here. it just depends on what your preference is. And so what I'm going to first try to do is I'm going to take this, and I know for sure I want to follow the hood release cable. We're going to get behind this stuff here. I don't want to follow the hood release cable all the way because it goes in areas that I don't necessarily think are needed. So our support for the front of the grill is here, and so that's very close to where I want to route. So I'm going to bring it underneath here, and I have it underneath there. I have a nice channel here that I can run through. For me, I'm going to come through this hole here. I'm going to show you all the final routing. So we have the camera itself being tied here, and then here I have zip tied the connector, put some electrical tape on there, and so you see here coming along the structural support. We're going down here, the side behind the headlight. Got it tied here, and it comes behind. You see how it's in the battery well, and then start zip tying to the hood release cable, and then ultimately it goes into the firewall. Okay, we're going to install the front camera. If you haven't put the bracket on, you'll need to do that. Do your best not to over torque those. They're threaded in plastic, and so you could easily damage them. So I've elected to not drill a hole here. When you put your camera on, you want to center it up so it looks nice. It looks better the further back you go, but you can't go back too far because this bottom ledge gets a little more pronounced. But you do have to go far enough back so that it isn't damaged by automatic car washes and all those sorts of things. I'm electing to not put screws in. Instead, I'm going to use a Gorilla Glue tape that's supposed to be rated for like 60 pounds and indoor, outdoor, and we'll see if that works okay. And so first thing I'll do is prep the area with an alcohol. Take the tape that I've already pre-cut, kind of center it up. Just take this piece off. Okay, so here's the moment of truth. Is prepare your trim plugs. Now that you push them through, you need to pop them out. Put them in and then push them flush to engage them. So let's do that real quick. Make sure all the holes line up. Make sure that it's flush. And there you have it. So the first thing you're going to do is take your plastic trim tool, and there's a little notch here. You're going to take this piece out. Then you need a 10mm socket. You're going to take the pull strap down. Remove these lights. Now there's a metal clip on the side of each one that you need to kind of push in to remove it. So go ahead and take that down, push the clip, and pull. Keys. Same thing, different side. They're both on the driver's side of the car, but there's a little notch there that kind of clues you in that something is existing there for you to pry on. Similar to the trim panel on the door, we're going to have to pull on this. Now, if you look along the edge here, you can kind of see that there's probably at least one place you can grab, and for me, there's a notch here with an arrow. So I'm going to put my trim tool there, pull down, pull everything straight down, so as not to break the clips. Okay. Now, as with the door, we're kind of hooked up here, and so what we're going to do is kind of push up, and that should come down. Again, 10mm socket, 3 bolts. Now we've got some plastic clips here as well, and so I'm going to see if I can move those out of the way or pull them out. So now that we have all of the electronics off the back of the liftgate, it's a good idea to go ahead and put something in the latch to keep it from engaging. We don't want to accidentally close our liftgate and not be able to open it easily. You don't want to take off these bolts. These are just holding the speaker, and you want the whole assembly to come out. Now fortunately, there are some plastic clips in here that are holding this up and keeping it from falling on my head. So I'm going to go ahead and undo this clip here, and then I'm going to pull straight down. Alright, so now we've got that, and speaker wire clip is here. Start from the top and route our wire through the passenger side of the liftgate. Got this approach from a guy at Wanderlost Overland. Shout out to him for doing a good job and giving me some good tips here. Once you wash your hands so you don't get things dirty, you kind of get in here with the trim tool and pull down a little bit on these trim clips on the headliner. And once you do that, they'll kind of stick out, and you can use your forked trim tool to kind of get them the rest of the way. That's that right there. It gives us access to where this boot is here. Take this boot off here, and then take it off here. I came up with something that I think works okay. So what you see here is a coat hanger, and I've doubled the end over and crimped it tight so that it is blunt. Otherwise you could risk poking a hole in this thing. I did the same thing on the other end, but on it I tied a piece of pretty strong line, and I snaked that then through here, and I tied the other end to the bottom of the connector. And so what this does is it doesn't add any more girth to the piece, but it allows us to pull rather than to push a cord. And we're going to route it through here finally. Okay, and then I can stuff this back in here as best I can to make it waterproof again. I'm going to pull these out because we're going to start routing our cable here to here and then work our way down. Okay, so going from here to here is not that hard. You can kind of reach it with your fingers, fish it through, put the rubber grommet back where it goes. But I was having a little trouble going from here to here, and the reason for the string is that when the rod is too rigid by itself to reach the hole in a way that I can grab it. And so the string is there so that I can have something to easily fish through this hole. Here we've got this. I'm going to go ahead and just tie a little Little loop here. So now that we've got something to pull on, there are 4 of them. We'll also probably need a 10mm wrench. Looks like to allow me to get to those. So. Okay, there's one way back here, just above one of the mechanisms. If you absolutely wanted to, you could take out the other speaker and that would make it easier to reach. Now I'm going to put this back in place for now because... Okay, we're going to try and take this off. There's a couple of clips that are holding it near the top. It helps if you've got somebody to kind of hold the door for you. You just pull straight out. Yeah, that gives us enough access to take these off. I'm going to take the screws out here for this light. Alright, got a screwdriver. I'm going to take the screws out. Go ahead and pull the camera up through this. So hopefully you guys see kind of the routing. Goes through this light fixture and then into this grommet here. First things first, I'm going to put the 4 nuts in. This is our cable for our camera, see here. Now, I don't want it to get into the way of any of the window mechanisms that are here. Zip tie the cable out of the way. So I don't believe anything is in the way. Go ahead and put this unit back on temporarily. Hook up the switches that go into it. And we're going to test and see if the window works. Alright, well, looks like everything stayed where it needed to be and stayed out of the way of the window. Put the speaker back in. Clip in speaker wire. It's got some clips that help us to hold it in place while we put the screws in. And we're going to snap this back in, snap this in. And we need to take this down. Well, got a little gust of wind here. But we're going to put this back in place, trying our best to line it back up exactly the way it was to reduce the mess and just for it to look nice. You want to put this back in place. Make sure you have all the connections done. And then reinstall these. You got to be careful on these. You can strip them out. We want to make sure these come through the holes for the lights. We want to make sure that when we install this, it hooks underneath or hooks on top of this lip here. So I'm going to start. There we go. And then if everything's right, you should be able to click everything back in. You've got one plug here, and then so And then there's a small trim piece, if you recall, goes this way. Install this camera with Gorilla Tape. I'm gonna take some alcohol, clean it off really good, clean off the camera really good, let that evaporate. Now I want the cord to go back here into this corner. So we've got our cable that's running in the headliner. So here, you just take the weather stripping loose, and as with most things, just pull. And looks like I can get down there from here. Than that, so let's put this one. Pull the weather stripping from here and kind of break this free. Fiberglass fishing rod. So I'm going to go ahead and run that wire through there so you don't have to see my shaky camera. Let's go ahead and put all 3 of our headliner clips back in. The wire run through the trim panel. One thing I want you to notice is, you see these clips right here? Those are for the molding, so you want to make sure and run your cord under those clips or behind them so that it doesn't get in the way of the molding. Okay, I took this off. It had 2 10mm bolts on it, and now I'm ready to get this seal plate off. So as with most of these, we're going to pull straight up, and there's a nice big channel there for our cord. So I'm going to finish routing it behind here, through here, and then through here. We've got the sill plate put back in. All the other trim is in place, snapped in really tightly. Got everything routed in the tray here. And what I've found is that I'm running a little short on cable. So to take the carpet up, you see there's some little plastic clips in here, and once you take those out, part of the carpet is velcroed to the back there. I don't know if you can, there's the velcro strips. So you can just kind of lean it up some and then pull the wires underneath it. Cords routed up underneath the carpet. We're going to replace the seal plates and the other trim pieces. Long install video. Oh, a big thank you to King Sev and his team there at CarTrimHome. They really went the extra mile in supporting me in the install. So good luck everybody, and leave any questions you have in the comments, and I'll do my best to reply to them.